Hello and welcome to Arsenal Analysed. I'm JC. I hope you're doing well. And today I've got an extra special video for you, a question that certainly divides the Arsenal fan base as well as football fans. Has Arteta improved Arsenal since taking charge? And I'd love to know if your opinion changes throughout today's video. So please do let me know in the comments down below when we get to the end. Now, if you do go on to enjoy today's video, please do drop a like. And if you're new around here, why not consider subscribing, as it massively helps me out. And today's video will be split into three sections. First up, we'll be looking to discuss whether or not Arteta has managed transfers and finances since taking charge. Second, we'll be looking at the tactics and cultural changes under Mikel Arteta. And finally, we'll crunch some numbers to see whether or not, season on season, are there any noticeable differences between campaigns. So, without no further ado, let's jump into some transfers. A subject that is often spoken about, whether or not Arsenal bring in the right players, whether or not Arsenal spend too much on players, and also whether or not we've let go of a few gems. Something that Arsenal have often been guilty of in the past. And it's probably a good place to start looking at some of the players that Arsenal have let go down the years. Guendouzi is the latest name to be leaving Arsenal. Yes, he's on loan at Marseille, a player that many Arsenal fans were keen to see back in an Arsenal shirt. But when we speak about cultural changes at Arsenal, this really does hit the nail on the head. His attitude is apparently not quite right, falling out with Arteta at least two times in the short space of time they did work together. This is also highlighted in other players like Aubameyang, for example, where turning up late for training and his general attitude as a captain of Arsenal Football Club just wasn't quite right. And then we've also got Mesut Ozil, who at times it felt like he was more interested in what was going on off the field as opposed to on the field. Now, we're not going to get into the politics of it. I know there are some strong views on Mesut Ozil. But if we continue to look down this list, Arsenal down the years or since 2019 haven't really recouped too much money in the form of transfer fees. However, we'll get into this in the next section. A lot of players have left for free, and this has freed up a lot of wages, which has meant that Arsenal have had a lot more money to spend in those summer transfer windows. Some notable names there are Kolasinac, Willian, Mustafi, Mkhitaryan, Socrates, all effectively had their contracts terminated by mutual consent. Now, we have had a total of around £60 million for the players that you can see on screen. We have made more money than this down the years in things like loan fees and also those wages that we've got off the books. There are a lot of players like Bellerin, for example, Mavropanos, Saliba, who would have got good fees for their loans. And some of those players may even be leaving the club this summer. Now, when it comes to signing players during Arteta's reign, there have been some flops, if you will. Willian is probably the biggest one of note, playing for Arsenal for 1 year on a big contract and leaving at the end of that particular season. Other players where it just hasn't worked out are Runarsson. Cedric has played better recently. Pablo Mauri is another one who's just left the club on loan as well. So some names there that just haven't worked out for one reason or another. But this was very early on in Arteta's managerial career, working alongside the likes of Edu. And we have to say, in the last summer transfer window, Arsenal, Arteta, Edu, Vinai got it absolutely spot on. There was a very specific type of profile they were looking for in terms of personality. And this is where some of those cultural changes have changed. We're not looking to bring players in who want to be the star of the show. Players like Aubameyang, very, very flashy players, people with the wrong attitudes, people like Guendouzi, for example. Looking at players who just want to get their heads down, work hard, team players, and want what's best for the team. And some of those boys, the likes of Ben White, Odegaard, Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, Lokonga, Tavares, Gabriel, Thomas Partey, are definitely good signings, all of which are now regularly featuring in the Arsenal first team. And it will be very interesting to see who Arsenal decide to pick up in the coming summer transfer window. Now, on screen, it says that we've spent around about £226 million since Arteta took over. There are the odd signing here and there as well, some of the youth signings and loan fees that we've had to pay when Odegaard came in, for example, last season. But overall, we spent just over 220 million, which means that we're at a deficit of around about 160 million. If you take into consideration some of the fees that we've got for players who have been sent out on loan, you could probably shave off another 10 to 20 million pounds. So what are your thoughts? Good business, bad business on the ins and outs? Let me know down in the comments below. And we have up next a breakdown of the finances and whether or not they've been managed well. We won't spend too long on this section as I don't want to bore you with the numbers. But something to look at here are the 2 years whilst Emery was in charge, followed by the 3 years and the current season that Arteta has been in charge of Arsenal Football Club. Now, Emery had probably two of the biggest wage bills whilst at Arsenal. Admittedly, Arteta does have the second biggest, and that comes down to that new contract that was offered to Aubameyang. But one thing that I have noticed is a lot of these contracts for the bigger players, for the players that haven't actually worked out too well, have now been released from the club. And what that has meant is that Arsenal, last summer being the biggest spenders in Europe, as well as this summer, we're being quoted and rumoured to have around about £180 million available to spend. A lot of that does come down to those contracts being mutually terminated and players just not having their contracts renewed. Some of those notable players are Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, £350,000 per week. Mesut Ozil on the same money. Willian on £200,000. A lot of money being spent on players that weren't necessarily making a difference in that starting 11 or really involved for that matter. If we have a look at Arsenal's current squad, though, we've got Thomas Partey on 200, Lacazette on 180, Nicolas Pepe on 140. So those wages have come down for the higher profile, older players. It'll be really, really interesting to see who gets what in the summer. We've got Saka, who is, well, looking to be tied down on a long-term contract and in line with what some of the best, more important players are on our Arsenal Football Club. But we're also looking to sign high-profile players in the summer in that striker and central midfield position. Will this upset the structure, or will we see players still coming in at between 150 to 100? Now, diving into part 2 of this video, my favorite part of all the videos that you see on my channel is the tactical analysis and the changes that we've seen since Mikel Arteta took over. Obviously, there was a squad of players that he inherited. A lot of those players are now no longer at the club. And if we have a look on paper, when Arteta first took over and all the way up until, well, the back end of last year, really, so quite recently, Arsenal were playing a 4-2-3-1 formation on paper. It looks very different in possession when attacking, and even more so when we were looking to defend as well. Now, predominantly when we were attacking, there was a over-reliance on Kieran Tierney. And if we have a look at the middle pitch, the attacking formation here, we can see that Kieran Tierney on the left-hand side, labelled as LB, is the furthest player forward. And a lot of what we did well was through Kieran Tierney. And what that did mean is whoever was playing on the left wing, and it did fluctuate between, at the time, Saka and Nicolas Pepe in the early days, more recently Martinelli as well as Smith Rowe. It's changed massively since then, playing with a double pivot in midfield, something that we've dropped in more recent times. And there was a big reliance on the right-hand side when we played Saka or Nicolas Pepe on that right-hand side. So our main attacking threats were either Aubameyang or Saka. And then we had two double pivots in midfield providing the assistance. We often used to set up when defending in a 4-4-2 formation, sitting quite low. We were really inviting pressure quite often. There were many games, especially at the start of this season. And one of those of note was Crystal Palace. Brighton was another one. Burnley, another, where we sat really, really, really deep and we created our own problems. However, since Arteta has had his own crop of players, since we've moved out the old and brought in the new, this is his squad now, we have started to see some noticeable changes in the lineup, the way we shape things in attack and defense. And this is highlighted in this next screen. Now, on paper, going into most games now, we're playing with more of a 4-3-3. And you can see on screen on the left-hand side, in that midfield area, Lacazette is starting to drop a little deeper, with Thomas Partey sitting as the deep pivot, with Xhaka on the left and Odegaard on the right, creating somewhat of a diamond. But it also creates rotations out wide with the likes of Cedric and Saka on the right, or Tomiyasu. And on the left-hand side, we've got Kieran Tierney, Martinelli, or Smith Rowe, depending on who's playing, and Xhaka. And this is highlighted in the middle picture, the attacking one. We can see here that the left and right back push up into central midfield, offering that support out wide when needs be. And we're playing more of a 2-3-5. Yes, across the attacking sector. And this is creating a lot of opportunities. And this is highlighted here in those wide rotations. But what it does mean is that we now have around about 5 players in that defensive half, and we're not as open to those counterattacks. And it has been more notable this season. Arsenal have only conceded 1 goal this season from counterattacks. That is the second best ranking in the Premier League this season. So it just goes to show that making these changes, changing that role for certain players, Xhaka being one of them, it really does make the world of difference. And also when in our defending position, we've changed from more of a 4-4-2 to a 4-1-4. It allows those 5 forward players to really push on to create more effective counterattacks. It's more difficult as well for teams to break us down because we can close the ball down a lot quicker. So much so that Arsenal have actually scored the most counterattacks this season, more than any other side. 6 counterattacks scored by Arsenal Football Club. Now, one thing that we also have to look at here was these low blocks mentioned in the previous section. Is often Arsenal were caught in these low blocks, like against Brighton, Burnley, Crystal Palace. We're now starting to see more of a mid block, and that way the pressure isn't as intense when looking at this particular formation. Now, Arsenal often now do try to apply pressure in that final third a little more often, closing that ball down, looking to win it back within a 7-second period. And that is very reminiscent of a certain Manchester City where, well, Mikel Arteta would have picked up a thing or two. Now, these are 2 very good examples of when this system works. And in the bottom left-hand corner, we can see here at the back end of last calendar year, Arsenal played against Southampton, a phenomenal first goal. But you can see here in the white line, that is Arsenal's back 4. And in the black triangle, we've got Arsenal's midfield, and then a line of red across the front. And if you have a look at the formation or the system just above that picture, that is exactly how Arsenal have lined up in this particular game and do line up at the moment. And we can see all of the passing channels and lanes. Every single time an Arsenal player receives the ball now, they have at least 2 passes to make in the direction that they're facing. So a far more fluid system. And if you can take yourself back to the game against Southampton, it was effectively a zigzag all the way up that right-hand side because of the fluid system that Arsenal were using. And also in the formation that we can see in the top right-hand corner, again, it was those wide rotations that really helped unlock Southampton, because Tomiyasu came in as a inside underlap as opposed to an overlap, which created space for Lacazette, who eventually got the ball from Saka's cross. Now, in the bottom right-hand corner, I just want to highlight the press when I mentioned that Arsenal are now looking to press a lot more in that final third, creating a much higher line, creating that pressure all on the opposition, having those 5 players constantly press. Norwich, perfect example. Within 8 seconds of Norwich having the ball, Arsenal managed to win the ball back. And in those white circles, you can see there the 5 forward players that are pressing and putting Norwich under pressure to win the ball back. In this particular move, I think it was Kieran Tierney who initially won the ball, played it from left to right, and it eventually ended in a goal for Arsenal. So this is when it works. Other examples include games against the likes of Manchester City and some more notable wins in our last 3 or 4 games as well. So what does that mean moving into the third and final part of this video, the league campaign comparison? So at this stage last season, both Arsenals had played 25 games. However, last season at this stage, Arsenal had only won 10 games. They'd scored 31, so an average of 1.24 goals per game, conceded 26, so conceding just over 1 goal per game on average, 34 points, but we found ourselves in 11th position. So not great. A lot of Arsenal fans weren't very happy, especially after finishing 8th in that campaign and having finished 8th in the campaign before. But what does that mean this year? Those changes that we've talked about, those new personnel, the formation change, the system change, what does that mean? After 25 games this season, Arsenal have won 15 games. That's 5 more than last year. We've picked up 10 more points, currently sitting on 41. We have a per game goal ratio of 1.64, so significantly higher compared to last season. We have conceded more goals, but the good thing is we were really, really good at defending last year and we didn't manage to score enough goals. So there are going to be sacrifices that need to be made in order to score more goals. And there's not a big difference in this particular area. But the biggest one and the most important one, we have 48 points, a huge difference compared to last season. That's an additional 14 points compared to last year. And we currently sit in 4th place with 2 or 3 games in hand on the team below us, which I think, as things stand at the time of recording this video, is Manchester United. So that is all of the information that I wanted to share with you. In my opinion, I would say that Arsenal and Arteta have certainly improved. It's been a roller coaster ride, and by no means has it been easy in that first 18 months. The edge was taken off of it, I think, with Arteta winning that FA Cup. But as a young manager, effectively learning on the job, we're now starting to see the fruits of his labour and the reason why the Arsenal hierarchy wanted to employ him in the first place. A long-term project, which is by no means finished. There is a long way to go. And hopefully, just hopefully, if Arsenal can secure Champions League football this season, this will be the first big step of many in the right direction. So let me know down in the comments below, as I asked you at the very beginning of this video, has Arteta improved Arsenal? Is your answer the same? Have I changed your mind? Let me know down in the comments below. Either way, I hope you have enjoyed today's video. Please do drop a like if you have enjoyed it. And as I've said in the last few videos, I am less than 40 subscribers away from 1,200. So if you are new around here and you have found today's video informative, please do subscribe. It massively helps me out. But that's going to about wrap things up for now. I will see you in the next one. But for now, stay safe and take care.